Williams, who is a social entrepreneur and also the CEO and founder of Reimagine Talent Co. Thank you, everybody. Give us a round of applause. Ms. Chessie Williams, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you so much for the warm introduction. I am honored and delighted to be back with UNCF. I had a chance to support the Student Leadership Conference, and we had a good time at that. And so UNCF, I was sharing with the team, holds such a special place in my heart. I went to Spelman College and navigated through Spelman as a UNCF scholar. So anytime UNCF says to show up, I show up. And so I'm very excited to pour into all of you today and inspire you and support you in your career journey, okay? So let's go ahead and get into it. So today we're gonna be talking about how to stand out, in the interview process. And we're really going to be mixing a few conversations. We're going to be talking about personal brand. We're going to be talking a little bit about getting to the heart of who you are. And then we're going to be talking about the action steps that help set you up for success. So some things you need to learn and know about me. I told you a little bit before, but I am an entrepreneur. I'm an ex-Wall Streeter turned entrepreneur. I left Spelman, went to New York City, spent about 10 years on Wall Street, living in Harlem, working in Midtown, having fun in Brooklyn, partying. I was going to say partying. I can say I was partying in Brooklyn. So I did all the things as a student, and I had a very awesome experience in financial services. I know this program is going to be preparing you all to consider careers in finance. That's my background. And I truly believe that's the background that led me to entrepreneurship. So I'm excited to share what I learned. I now live in Atlanta. I left New York City last year to avoid COVID and to get a little bit more space and be close to family. In my spare time, I love music, travel, podcasts, cycling, and dining with loved ones. That's a little bit about me. Now about you. What are we going to do in our time together? You're going to understand what it takes to build a brand and position yourself to land an internship. You're going to discover elements of your brand kit and how to leverage them to stand out in the interview process. You're going to gain a list of resources to support your internship exploration. And you're going to ask me some questions at the end based off of what you learn and gather through the session. So let's get into it with this Pulse survey. This is the first survey of the day, and it's to kind of get a sense of where you are. So my question to you all is, how confident do you feel navigating the internship search today? Very confident, confident in some ways, or not confident? Respond in the chat. How are you feeling about navigating the internship search today? 30 seconds on the clock. Don't think too hard. First response. First response is the best response. 15 seconds. How are you feeling? What are we seeing in the chat? Confident in some ways, confident, very confident. We've got a mixture, but many of you are feeling confident. And for those of you who said you're feeling confident in some ways, I'm going to give you some things today that I believe are going to help push you over the top. Okay, so very good. Thank you for your responses there. Here's my second question for you. How confident do you feel about your brand materials? When I talk about brand materials, what am I talking about? Your resume, your cover letter, your LinkedIn profile, and your overall elevator pitch. Do you feel you've got the brand building blocks in place to help you show up as your best self? Go ahead and share in the chat. Very confident, confident, confident in some ways, or not confident. "30 seconds. How are you feeling?" I'm seeing confident, confident, confident in some ways, very confident. Confident in some ways, need to brush up on my elevator pitch. I hear that. Very good. Confident in some ways, awesome. So again, you're in the right spot. If you're confident, or somewhat confident you're where you need to be. If you're very confident, I love to see it. And I'm going to be asking some questions that I think are going to help us all build confidence in navigating the internship search. Here's another question for you before we get into the content. What are some of the qualities that you believe helps a college student land an internship with a company in 2022 today? Because the job market has changed in 2022 versus 2019 pre-pandemic, and certainly in the early 2000s when I was interning, early to mid 2000s when I was interning. So what are some of the qualities that you believe companies want out of grads? Go into the chat, share a few things that come to mind for you. I'm gonna give you 30 seconds to respond. Keep it coming, keep it coming, keep it coming. Awesome. Good work experience, a prior work experience, inquisitive. I love that, Rufus, asking questions. Elijah says experience. I believe it's Jovinson says versatility, so maybe having different experiences. Gabrielle says critical thinking, problem solving. Awesome. Can I get a few additional qualities you believe are important? What do employers want? What do you think? Do you think employers care about leadership? Do you think employers care about being someone who sees the value of diversity? What do you think? Share a few additional things that you think matter. I'm going to give you about 10 seconds to respond. Okay, they're coming in. Diversity, yeah. Someone with strong communication, adaptability, being open-minded and able to learn. Fantastic. So now I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story. I'm going to tell you my story to encourage you to be in the driver's seat of your career and your profession, because I truly believe, I was just speaking at a first generation college student conference in Denver about 2 hours ago. I'm in Denver now. And I was talking to students and I was telling them the job market of 2022 is so different than it's ever been before, because you all get to be in the driver's seat of decisions around career in a way that really hasn't happened before. And so I'm going to share my story again, just to inspire you. So I'm going to start my journey from my time at Spelman College. For those who don't know, Spelman is a historically Black women's college, liberal arts in Atlanta, Georgia. Spelman was the first place in my life where I experienced belonging. Some of you know what it's like to step in a place or space and feel seen, feel valued, feel heard, feel protected. That's what I felt at Spelman. It was the place where I gained the wings to fly. I grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina as an only. I was one of few Blacks in most of my class, and certainly one of the few people who have the immigrant experience, having a parent who's immigrated to the US. So I had some experiences that were very different in K-12, and Spelman helped me feel seen. I remember at Spelman my sophomore year, I was an economics major. When you're an economics major at a liberal arts college, two things happen. You either go and become an economist, so you get a PhD in economics, or you go and work on Wall Street. Y'all, I was not interested in being an economist at all. So I chose the Wall Street route, which a lot of us did, and I went and decided I wanted to work on Wall Street. So I can remember my first information session, company overview session. It was actually at Morehouse. I remember I put my little business dress on, I got my bag and I headed across campus, and I went into Morehouse Business Center for an information session with a company called Barclays. That's headquartered in London, but they have a big business in New York City. And I remember going to the information session like, is there a place for me here? I wonder. But I listened and listened and listened. And at the end, the global head of diversity recruiting was there. She was in the session. And I remember going up to her and saying, you talked a lot about all the different roles that you have, banking roles, global market sales and trading roles, operation roles. But I'm interested in working with people. I'm interested in helping develop people and help people really maximize their time in workplaces. She's like, well, are you interested in what I do? Like something like recruiting or working in the human resource field. And I was like, I don't really know what that is, but that speaks my language. And I remember in that moment, this is the powerful piece. They actually didn't have an internship aligned with what I wanted to do. I remember saying, here's my resume. I'd love to work with you all. I just don't know what it looks like. 1 week later, I get a call from the head of recruiting saying, I want you to come and work with us. We have an internship. We're going to create an internship for you. And so I got a chance to be in the HR internship. That's what I wanted in New York City, my sophomore summer. That sophomore summer, just from the conversation that I had with Terry Udit, that's her name, turned into a junior summer internship and a scholarship. They gave me a scholarship as well. And that scholarship turned into a full-time job in a rotational program where I graduated and spent 6 months in different parts of the bank. And I'll tell you all, I never knew that asking the question and advocating would turn into an opportunity. So what I want to tell you today is we're going to talk a lot about the parts of your brand, the parts of your experience that are going to help you really set yourself apart for the internship. But I don't want you to neglect the part that as you speak up, as you show up at company information sessions, as you involve yourself with UNCF, as you connect with mentors, the opportunity of your dream could be right there in front of you. But you've got to be confident enough to make the ask. Okay. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what that looks like for you as students. So I shared a little bit about my story, and now I want to dig into your story because that's the part that's really important. Where you are and where you're going, where you've been and what you've learned. Okay. Your brand is what people say about you when you are not in the room. Jeff Bezos, founder and former CEO of Amazon, said this, and it's true. What are people saying about you when you're not in the room? Because guess what? Most decisions that impact you professionally will happen when you're not in the room. That resume that the recruiter is evaluating will happen likely when you're not in the room. That offer letter that they draft when they say, we want you to come and join our org, that'll happen when you're not in the room. The decision about an offer, will we extend an offer to Zion or not, will happen when you're not in the room. So I want you to take some time and think about what people are saying about you when you're not in the room. Because your resume, your LinkedIn, and any part of your brand collateral is just a small piece of who you are. Each of those pieces are going to impact ultimately how you show up through the internship search. I want to remind you that you're in control of your brand and your brand narrative, the story that is being told about you. Both of them can support your success in early career. All right. So now it's time for y'all to brag a little bit. What's one thing you believe people are saying about you when you are not in the room? Ruckus is like, I know, I'm about to put it in the chat so everybody knows, right? I love it. I love it. What is one thing you believe people are saying about you when you're not in the room? Don't overthink this. Be confident and share in the chat. You have 30 seconds. They're coming, they're coming, they're coming. I love it. Nicole says well-rounded and friendly. Ebony says professional and reliant. Carla says hardworking and ambitious. Michael says personable. Nyla says risk taker. Courtney says strong-minded, hardworking. Jovison says confident, hardworking, and ambition. Now here's my question for you. I love that you know what you believe people are saying about you when you're not in the room. My next question is, When someone's looking at your resume, when they're on your LinkedIn page, when they're having a 30-second elevator pitch conversation with you, do you believe that quality or those qualities are coming through? That's the question. That's the question that we're going to explore together. So what are the building blocks of landing an internship? What do you need to consider? What do you need to do? What mindset do you need to have to land an internship? I want to remind you all that there's things that matter and there's things you can control. I truly believe internships and work experience matters. Anybody agree? It matters. It's a bridge to opportunity, right? I also believe that there are things that you can control. COVID taught us there's a lot we can't control, but yet when it comes to our brand, when it comes to representing our best selves, we have more of an opportunity to write the story and write the script than we originally think. This conversation is going to focus on what you can and what you should be doing to set yourself up for success. So let's dive into it. There's some questions I'm going to pose. I want you to think and reflect on it personally that are going to help us get to being a standout candidate for internships. What do you need to know, knowledge, information, resources, to make your best career decision, to land the internship of your dreams? This is the first question you have to ask yourself. I believe, point one, you have to be able to evaluate internally, that means within you, and then externally. That means outside of you, right? What's happening around you. So when we talk about the work that has to be done to make sure that you are crafting your best resume, crafting your best brand when you're interviewing, creating your best LinkedIn, there's some questions I want you to consider. First, internally within you, what matters most to you and why? What do you value? What organizational culture and organizational type aligns with your desires? Really, really important for you to consider the type of organizational culture, the type of organization, small organization, large organization, global organization, aligns with who you are and where you want to work. What kind of culture is going to help bring out your best self? In financial services, there's so many different types of financial services firms. There's bulge bracket, which you've probably heard about, the Morgan Stanleys, the JP Morgans, the Goldman Sachs. There's smaller investment firms like an Ariel Investment in Chicago that was started, Black-owned and operated, and is one of the few that is still here today. There's places like Lazard Ferrer, that's a smaller investment company that has an asset management arm as well. There's so many. You've got to decide what's going to align best with who you are. Second, external. Now more than ever, what's happening around us and staying close and proximate to what's happening around us helps us show up better in the job search process. What is happening in the world around you today? What events are taking place? What developments are happening? What's happening in your city? If I'm in New Orleans, if I'm in DC, if I'm in Chicago, if I'm in New York, what is happening in my locality? What developments are impacting your desired industry or sector? Well, we're talking about financial services today. There's a lot going on in the finance sector, right? And your ability to know that, to speak to that confidently and comfortably, is how you stand out and show out in the interview process. It's time for a quiz, right? I mentioned financial services and the financial markets, and there's a lot going on right now in that space that you, if you are interested in working in the industry or sector, should know. So here's my question for you. What in the world is taking place in our society that's impacting financial markets that's impacting our economy at large? Drop it like it's hot in the chat. Share what you think, what comes to mind, and we'll take it from there. I'm going to give you 30 seconds. What are we seeing? Interest rates, very good, Ellington. Zion, Fed tightening rates, exceptional. Gabrielle, we're still navigating this pandemic. I believe it's Malone, housing market going wild. Yeah, that's an understatement. Stephen, Russian and Ukraine war is affecting oil prices. I don't expect anything less from UNCF. Y'all know what's up. Here's what I'll tell you from my time when I was working on Wall Street. I was leading early talent recruiting and development. So we were traveling to all the universities and I was managing the strategy. I can't tell you all how many times we were interviewing for internship roles and asset managers or bankers would say, the student, we asked a question about what's taking place in the market and they said they don't know. Nothing worse for you to want to enter an industry or sector and be clueless or uninformed in what's taking place. If financing is the sector that you want to go into, I want you to start diving into the resources that are going to help you be knowledgeable. So I believe one of the things that's very important when we're talking about capacity building and setting yourself for success in interviews is using the resources around you. So I put on the screen a few of the resources I really appreciate. The Muse is a career exploration site. Really powerful site that gives you profiles and overviews of companies. A lot of financial services companies are there where you can get an idea of a day in the life. You also can get resources like interview questions, and you can get information like how to prepare a resume. And I'm going to share a resource with you in just a few minutes. I'm a podcaster. If you're a podcaster, say podcast in the chat. I am big on I learn by listening. That's my style of learning. So I love podcasts. And I think if you're interested in a particular industry or sector, how do you make sure that you're consistently gaining information around that sector? If you're interested in going into music and entertainment, I hope that you've got some podcasts in that space. If you're interested in being an entrepreneur, I hope that you've got some podcasts in that space. So I put a few that I really appreciate. Anthony O'Neill, The Table, and Farnoosh Tora's So Money is very, very good podcast through CNET, which is a financial markets related media company. CNBC, as you all know, is the leader in markets and stuff that's taking place in the economy. So I think every day, taking an eyeball scan of some of the hot headlines is a very important habit for you to go ahead and start doing. And then there's this powerful app I love called Flipboard. Flipboard helps you curate news of interest to you, so you avoid all the extra stuff that you may not care about. So Flipboard is where you could go, you could put in capital markets, you could put in alternative investing, you could put in financial operations, and then you could get headlines specifically in that niche area within a broader concept. Okay, I believe in sharing resources. So here are some that I love. Feel free to share in the chat any resources that have been helpful to you in building your knowledge and awareness of the industry and sector. Podcasters in the house. I love it, love it, love it. Point 2, what story do you want to tell? After you know what's taking place internally in you and you've done that introspection, and then externally what's taking place in the market, society, and your location, you then have to ask yourself, what story do you want to tell? Because if you don't know the story you want to tell when you're interviewing and when you're putting your resume together, you're throwing darts at a wall. Some may stick, meaning you might get called for an interview and some won't. So I would ask you, what story do you want to tell? I want you all to build a brand that attracts. So how do we build brands that attract in 2022 as students? I want you to incorporate your tags, I call them tags, into your resume. Chelsea, what's a tag? your talents, your abilities, your gifts, and your skills. On a student resume today, you should have a skills or competency section. Your talents, abilities, and gifts may show up under work experience you've had, leadership roles you've possessed, community areas in which you've been of service. You've got to know your tags and you've got to be able to articulate them clearly and intentionally in the job search process. If people are guessing who you are, it's not going to help you land the offer. So I want you to be clear about that. Point 2, align your resume to the specific role of interest. Gone are the days where you can resume spam. What's that? Where you just drop your resume everywhere without any effort or intention. Especially if you're looking maybe for 2 distinct roles in finance. If you're interested in sales and trading and you're interested in alternative investments, you might have to craft your resume a little bit for the different types of internships. This requires you to take that job description out. What I used to do is I would tell my students, look at the job description, highlight all the bullets in the job description that you're like, ooh, I've done this or I've done something similar. And then go and work backwards. Take what you've highlighted, go to your resume, make sure some of those keywords are in your resume so that to a recruiter, they don't have to look hard. They can say, oh, financial markets, oh, that came up. Oh, this person has done Microsoft Excel. They've used it before. Oh, they know how to do data analysis. That kind of stuff is helpful for recruiters because it makes it clear to them that you've got the skills needed to do well on the job. Bullet 3, get confident and comfortable telling your resume story. I always tell people with the resume, if you can't talk your resume or speak over your resume as though you don't have the sheet in front of you. So if you went in for an interview and you had 2 copies of your resume, you thought you had one to give a recruiter and one you'd be able to keep yourself. But then another person walks in and the last resume you have to give to the person, which means you need to know your resume. If you don't know your resume like that, you don't know your resume. And you have to be clear about the story you want people to tell from your resume. Do you want them to learn a little bit about how you ended up at your college or university? Do you want them to know how you chose your major? Do you want them to know how you balance your major and your concentration with your extracurricular? You got to think about the story you want people to know about you that's rooted in your character, your mindset, and your vision. All right. Finally, the resume is a tool that doesn't translate results unless you actively use it. I told the UNCF crew, I didn't want to use this time just to talk you over a resume. Why? And I will at the end, I'll point out some things to you, but the resume is just a piece of the puzzle. Yes, you need to be thoughtful about it, but you also need to be thoughtful about prepping for interviews. You also need to be thoughtful about building relationships and information sessions. You also need to be thoughtful about using social sites to support you in learning about organizations and learning about the professionals who work there. It's all hands on deck in 2022. And I want you all to be thinking the resume is not the only entryway into an organization. Think about my story. It was the conversation at the information session that led to an opportunity that didn't exist. Verbal communication still matters. LinkedIn, I've mentioned it a few times here. I believe everybody here knows what LinkedIn is. So it's time for quiz number 2. What are some of the ways you can use LinkedIn as a student, or you have used LinkedIn as a student? Go into the chat, share how you've used LinkedIn or how you've seen it be used before. Okay, they're coming in. Internship search, school connections, network, stay in touch with coworkers, sharing accomplishments, networking. Fantastic. All of the above. All of the above. We're going to talk a little bit about why social sites are important, but LinkedIn is a non-negotiable for students. Critical resource to have. And I'm going to share some resources for you on building a LinkedIn profile and amplifying your LinkedIn profile if you haven't already. So leverage LinkedIn as a tool. I'm going to build in on some of what you've all shared. 80% of jobs are now found through networks. LinkedIn is a powerful network. Gone are the days where you just apply for things and hope it translates, right? That's really important for you to consider. And so LinkedIn becomes a very powerful way for you to build relationships with people, because people get jobs through relationship. I want you to be in control of your professional relationships and connect with employers, professionals, and other job seekers on one central platform. It's a way for you, you mentioned it, to do all the things in one place that makes your life more seamless, more integrated. I want you to prepare for interviews by getting a sense of who you'll be interviewing in company developments. The moment you get the email that says, we'd like to invite you for an interview, you're going to be interviewing with recruiter's name. You're going to be interviewing with hiring manager and associate. You should be going to LinkedIn, typing in the search the person's name and seeing what you can find about that person. You should know their role. You should know how long they've been at the organization. Why? It helps you create the questions that helps you show inquisitiveness. Somebody brought that up earlier. There's so much information that's readily available for us, but if we're not using it, we're leaving opportunity on the table. So when we're talking about some of the resources that I believe are really helpful in helping with branding, what are some things I think are important? Well, I mentioned LinkedIn to you. You're obviously a part of this amazing program that UNCF offers, and there's some amazing financial organizations that are connected to UNCF that are going to be pouring into you all. Get close, don't miss an opportunity. There's learning sites like Udemy where you can go and learn a skill, very cost-effective ways. If you are a psychology major, if you're an English major, if you're a non-finance accounting major and you're interested in going into the sector or industry, you've got to show a willingness and interest to build skills in the space you want to go and work in. You may show that through courses you've taken. So if you're a liberal arts major and you want to work in finance, you may have major and then you might have below it on your resume courses, and you might show there how you've taken active steps to prepare yourself for the industry or sector. Or you might add that you've done a professional certification or taken a few courses on Udemy or on LinkedIn. YouTube, as we all know, is like basically taking cable out of business, because we can learn so much on YouTube. There's nothing we can't gain access to. These are all resources when we're talking about interviewing, forming your elevator pitch, understanding a day in the life of an alternative investment hedge fund manager or an investment banker. There's so many tools to give us insight and access from where we are. We got to use it, okay? Question: what details matter in helping you land the opportunity of your dreams? What are the things you need to know or do to help you get that ideal internship, to help you get a role at that employer that you're interested in? Final quiz of today. What are some of the ways students disqualify themselves in the internship interview process? I want you to think about some of the things that you think would make a recruiter or hiring manager say, oh, no. On to the next. What do you think disqualifies? Share it in the chat. I'm going to give you about 30 seconds for this one. Ten seconds. Having no questions at the end, absolutely. If you're sitting with a hiring manager or a recruiter and you're like, and they ask you, do you have any questions? And you're like, oh, no, I'm all good. Thanks. Better believe that is a sign that you haven't done your due diligence and you're not asking the questions that are necessary. Trinity says not listening. Absolutely. When a recruiter or hiring manager gives you information and you haven't read it or listened, sometimes the instructions are in the email. Sometimes the instructions are given at the end of the interview and you miss it. Gabrielle says cocky and unteachable. Absolutely. You know it all. The know-it-all syndrome's got you, right? And people don't think that you're going to be a strong team player. Being unprepared, not doing your research. Maya, absolutely. Showing up and taking an interview with one organization the same as an interview with another. Absolutely. Great work, scholars. Great work. This is one of the most important slides you'll hear from me today. You all have probably heard the term common sense ain't so common. Have you heard that before? Well, this is really, really important because I will tell you, it is in the details, in the small, minute steps that people hinder themselves for success. So scholars, I'm going to tell you what I have heard year after year after year from hiring managers and employers. I want you to be attentive, communicative, and focused, like you are today. Like you are today. Within competitive job markets, details matter. You actually can't have spelling mistakes on your resumes, friends. You can't have the period and the comma in the wrong place. You can't have double spaced and there's a big gap between words. This is my favorite. You can't send the resume with your resume on one page and then the second page is a blank page and you PDF it and you send somebody 2 pages with only 1 page of content. I can't tell y'all how much that happens and how lazy. Here's what it looks like, lazy. I'm sharing this because I remember sitting in meetings. Some of it really hurt me because the truth was like, it was Spelman, you know, sometimes it was like, I'm the Spelman grad and we're interviewing Spelman students or Morehouse students. And there's nothing worse than someone saying, this is a great student, but Chelsea, they spelled finance wrong, right? Chelsea, they've got the period in the wrong place. Because in the world of financial services, you all know this, you can't afford to make mistakes like that, right? So that's what people are thinking about. You want to make sure your links work. If you're going to add your hyperlink to LinkedIn, if you're going to add your email, please work. Please be a working email, right? You want to be prompt and on time. On time is not on time. When we're talking about virtual interviews or we're talking about in-person interviews which are coming back, you got to give yourself buffer room. When it's a virtual meeting, the way that interviews could be on Zoom or Google Meets, you all know there's so many platforms. You could think you're good. It's a new platform and it takes you 20 minutes to be ready to go. You have to buffer in that extra time. Why? So you show up as your best self and you show that you're about your business. All right. And then finally, what I don't think we know and realize enough, follow up, follow up, follow up. Don't have a recruiting or hiring manager chase you for a response. Provide an email that you are willing to check every day. When it's interview time, your email actually should be coming to your phone. Because guess what? If it takes a recruiter 3, 4, 5 a week to get you on the calendar for an interview, that makes them think that you don't care. You're just an option, or they're just an option, excuse me. So the follow-up and the organization is critical in success, okay? Very, very, very important slide. And again, I'm gonna tell you, it is in the details. Half the battle is getting the details right. So what are some power resources for you? Oh, this is my favorite slide, because these are some of my favorite things. Grammarly. How many of you have heard of Grammarly before? Grammarly is the truth. If spelling or punctuation is not your forte, Grammarly can help you show up better, right? It's a tool that helps to make sure that you are writing complete sentences and that your spelling is correct. And I think sometimes Grammarly will check things for me that Word, because sometimes Word can overlook spelling errors, which is the worst, but Grammarly can check it. So these are things that I believe when you're recruiting and you're communicating, they're just good tools. There might be a little cost, but I think it's well worth it if it's something you struggle with particularly, right? Google Calendar. Whatever your calendar and your system for staying organized is, you need. You can't afford to miss the information session. You can't afford to miss the mentor meeting. You can't afford to miss the interview. So get your tool for organization together. Finally, 3, consume books, podcasts, and resources that help you show up as your best self through the interview process. This is one of my favorite books that I often share for students, College to Career by Lindsay Pollack, who does a lot of work with Gen Z and other emerging generations at work that really helped me. Actually, believe it or not, this book was available when I was at Spelman, navigate through my time into the next phase of my career. This kind of stuff is just all helpful information for all of you. Final pieces before we go into a LinkedIn and resume sharing session and then Q&A. Check your tech, shine bright, eliminate distractions. Check your tech. Believe it or not, before I showed up today, I met with the amazing UNCF team to check my tech, to make sure my lighting is bright. I'm a dark-skinned woman, so for me, lighting is required. It's not optional. You want to make sure that people can hear you. Because here's the thing. If you are interviewing, especially virtually, and the interviewers can't see you and can't hear you, or can't one or the other, that is impacting your interview. So you got to make sure, especially those of us who have melanin, we have to be mindful of lighting. That actually matters in interviews. You heard it here first. It's important. Third is eliminate distractions. You got to find the place or space, and I know it's not always easy, where you can be focused, where you're not going to have things flying through the screen, and where you can truly show up as your best self. So plan ahead. Does this mean that you've got to stay after school a little bit longer and find a classroom? Does this mean you're going to your local community center that has a workstation? Does this mean, based off of where you're going to be, you actually need to invest in some earbuds so you can cancel out the noise and be present? As they've said before, we got to handle our business the way we have to handle our business, because there are no excuses and many times second chances when it comes to showing up for an interview. Okay. We're at the end. And I want you all to stay in touch with me. But what I want to do most importantly is I want to go into my presentation, and I want to share with you some things that I think are really, really important when we talk about resumes. So we're kind of switching the script here. This is a very, very powerful article. Let me put it in the chat for you all. That is from the Muse. You heard me mention the Muse earlier. So this is how to write a college resume that'll get you hired, plus an example. And this article talks through the pieces of the resume that are important. I want you to hear these few things. Recruiters skim resumes. They spend an average of 7.4 seconds making their first pass on a resume, so you want to make a good impression. People are not spending 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes on your resume. They're spending seconds. This is why we can't afford the errors, right? So you want to make sure you include things like your contact information. For students, that might be your city, your state, your phone number, your email. And again, I think LinkedIn is going to be incredibly important moving forward. You want to have your education section because you're still students. You want to include your school name, your graduation date expected. What degree are you pursuing? Any majors, minors, or concentrations? If you are, again, a liberal arts major and you're interested in finance, what courses are you taking that are helping you get exposure to the industry or sector? All of these are important. You want to include your GPA. I don't believe you need SAT and ACT scores as second years or third years. So I don't think that's necessary, and most employers don't look at that. So I disagree with the Muse's point here. I don't think that's the focus. Okay, you want to share any other colleges or universities you've attended. Pandemic probably impacted most of you, but sometimes you'll have students who do study abroad, or they might do a domestic exchange, and this is where they put that. Okay. And then you certainly want to include your education, your experience. This is where you get to talk about your skills in action. Those tags I mentioned, talent, ability, gifts, and skills. This is the part where you get to really brag a little bit about some of the things you've done. So this is where you might include internships. This is where you might include any on-campus work that you've done, part-time work you've done, work study that you've done. And they're very, very powerful ways to show your experience. Some students will put here, if you did a project that is related to the fields you're interested in going into, that's a place you can put it as well. All right. Skills. I told you all skills is an important section and becoming more important. It wasn't as important when I was a student, but for you all it is. And this is where you get technical. You may have data analysis here. You may have Microsoft Excel here, right? You might have business writing here. This is where you give people the exact skills that they would pay for. It might be financial modeling. This is where you get specific. It could be CSS, Python, JavaScript, if you're going into like financial engineering or anything of the like. Okay, so these are the big things. Other sections include leadership. If you're involved on campus, a leadership section can be very important for you just to share how you're making an impact on and off campus. And so I want you to dive into this resume a little bit more. This is why I sent you the link. But this is just a very powerful toolkit to help you if you've got a resume, amplify it to the next level, or if you haven't built one, it includes the script. Now, what are some things I want you all to know about this resume that I think are very important? Quantify your experiences. What does that mean? Don't just tell me that I'm a part of a club and I've been helping to lead marketing, social media marketing on campus. I am a part of a club, Financial Professionals Association, that has about 100 members on campus. My social media strategy has reached an additional 500 people across our campus. Specifics matter on resumes. When we're talking about financial services industry, especially, you better believe numbers and analytics matter. So get in the habit of quantifying your experiences very clearly and very articulately, okay? That's just something I would point out. And then my final piece is every time you mention an action statement, give me the verb: researched, collaborated with, coordinated, drafted, analyzed, presented, recruited, the verb, and then the action. Very, very, very important. Okay. So that's one thing I want to share with you. And then the final thing I want to share with you is LinkedIn. And this is another thing that I'll be sharing in the chat that I want you're going to have to do some independent work after this, but this is another resource that I believe is critically important for all of you. And it is around LinkedIn. Okay. And so let me make sure I get this up here so everyone can see it. This is the LinkedIn profile checklist. Now, this is one of the most important resources you'll come across. It helps you build a LinkedIn profile as a student. Literally, friends, you can go through your LinkedIn or create one using each of these buckets. You want to have a photo. Don't stress yourself with this. iPhone, Android, anything in between. Go to a clean screen, get a friend to take a picture, put on what I call your happy up top, nice shirt, suit jacket, whatever the case is, smile for the camera, click, click, that's your photo. Don't stress yourself out, but you need a photo on your LinkedIn. You need to have a headline. So people who are on your profile for 15 seconds, they can get an idea of who you are and what you aspire to do. In this particular case, we've got econ major, aspiring financial analyst. So I know what David is majoring in, but I also know their interest. Aspiring sales and trading analyst, aspiring private equity associate, whatever it is that you're aspiring to do, get specific, okay? In the interest of time, you'll see here that it'll give you best practices for the summary that you need to include and how to provide somebody with a little bit of your story and a little bit of your secret sauce. And then you get into the experiences that you've had, any organizations you've been a part of, your education, volunteering, and skills, right? The rest of the stuff like honors and awards, courses, and projects, they're optional, but they could be powerful ways for people to get a sense of who you are, okay? The last little, what I'll call pro tip that I will give you all, and I think it's one of the things that's not talked enough about. Anytime you can get someone to write a recommendation for you on LinkedIn, if you're doing some work on campus, work study, or if you're doing a special project with a professor, if you've been leading and helped to put a major initiative on campus, and you can get someone to write a recommendation on your contribution and your impact. If I gave all of you homework on your LinkedIn and I said, I want you in the next 30 days to get someone to write a recommendation for you that lives on your profile, that would be a powerful step. This is actually one of those things that people actually look at, believe it or not. So that could be a very, very, very powerful way to start setting yourself up for success. And you're going to stand out compared to your peers because a lot of students don't think this matters. So it's a way to just help you start preparing for success. All right. Well, that is the end of my formal presentation. And I think I've just got a few minutes to spare for some quick questions. I hope that was helpful and beneficial.
Oh my goodness. I had to step in here really quickly before we start with our question and answers, not only just to give our students some quick housekeeping about those question and answers, but everyone, please give Ms. Chelsea a round of applause. I know if I was a student, that resume and that checklist would have been in my back pocket. I wouldn't go anywhere without it. So I hope you all took advantage of these amazing resources. Put them in the chat. She also gave you that visual aid. So please, and of course, this is also a recorded session. So we'll also be sharing it with you all so that if you missed anything, you can always go back in your Schoology environment. So we're just going to take a few minutes to ask Ms. Chelsea a couple of questions. You can put it in the chat. If you feel most comfortable, you can also, kind of shout out the questions, raise your hand, and we'll try to get to you. Rufus, go ahead and if you want to put it in the chat or come off of mute.
How you doing? First, my name is Rufus Williams, class of 2025, Morehouse Business Administration, concentration in finance. And first off, I want to thank you for coming and using some of your free time to talk to us. My question was, I know that you gave a lot of ways to stand out and a lot of ways to like upgrade your resume and stuff like that. But what would you put if like you want to go into like your side of business, like talking to people? Because I know a lot of finance is more like, in the background, but I also want to go out and talk to people like about like finance. Like what should I put on my resume that speaks to that?
Great question. I love it. Communication skills. How are you building your communication skills at Morehouse? Your public speaking, your relationships. That's the kind of thing that you can put in. You could use the leadership section. You could use the community service section. You could even put in skills, public speaking. Now, here's all I'll say, Rufus, I'm sure you're an amazing public speaker. For skills, here's something I learned, people. Don't put a skill down unless it's a skill. I can remember times interviewing. I remember one time there was a student at a university in New York who said that she was fluent in French. And then the recruiter started speaking in French in the interview. She was not fluent. She was learning. So, which is fine. But if you put something down as a skill, it needs to be a skill. And I want you just have to be able to speak to it. So Rufus, if public speaking is something that you enjoy and you're working on, put it down as a hobby, not a skill. And as you start to gain more experience at Morehouse and in the Atlanta area, then it can become a skill. If you are teaching financial literacy in the West End, or you're doing any type of work with groups, then it becomes a skill that you can talk about. And you can say public speaking is a skill, but you can back it up with receipts that show your impact. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am. Ashe.
Awesome. Keep up the good work. Williams and Morehouse. Love it.
Yes, great. Okay, we have one question in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and read that off, and then we'll go over to the other students who have their hands up really quickly. London Kim says, do you have resources for writing interview thank you letters and salary negotiation techniques?
Ooh,
that was a good one.
That's like, listen, that's a whole nother workshop, the salary negotiation one. What I'll say on salary negotiation is, it's when I tell you all that you are in a very good place, I'm not just saying it. I have seen the starting salaries of, I don't know, Troy, if you see, the starting salaries have shifted since I graduated. You all are getting paid. So there isn't a better time for you to negotiate than now. But I think, and I just talked about this earlier, what are you negotiating for? Is it truly salary? And I don't know, right, that you really want? What do you value, and why do you deserve more money? What have you done that's going to be value additive to the team or the organization that would warrant an increase? Because the truth is, everybody wants to be paid more. Why you? What skill or contribution are you bringing to the table that's going to impact the organization? That's the only way somebody's going to say yes. Now, of course, if there's a situation where there's a person who has the same role and you know they're making more than you, that's a whole different conversation. That's an equity conversation, which is still something for you to be mindful of, but I don't think that's the intent of the question today. So I think you need to know what you're advocating for. Okay. And then they said negotiating. What was the first part, Troy?
Writing interview thank you letters.
I love that. I love that question. Writing interview thank you letters, mandatory, not optional. I have heard some recruiters say, yeah, we're waiting around at our computer. If we don't get a thank you letter, that's it. Even if the person is like the bomb. Because it's decorum. It's gratitude, it's humility, it's all the things, right? So short and sweet is my suggestion. Dear Troy, I want to thank you so much, you and the team so much for your time and energy. I was sold on the organization before the interview, but learning the additional information that I did gave me exactly what I need to know that this is the place I want to launch my career. I look forward to next steps in the process. Have a wonderful night. Have a wonderful weekend. What I'll tell you about the follow-up, be clear and specific. Don't be like, oh, it was good. If you enjoyed the opportunity, you could see yourself there, say it. Be confident, be comfortable in speaking up for what you desire. It's a way that you start to practice advocacy. Great question.
Great question. We have Nyla and Trinity. Just want to keep in mind, let's keep our questions pretty short. We want to be cognizant of everyone's time. So Nyla, if you want to jump on screen, or if you want to just go ahead and come off mute and ask your question.
Hi, yes, thanks again, Ms. Chelsea, for coming on and helping us out. I do have a question, and it's in regard to basically redrafting your resume, for instance. Just in I know you want to keep your resume to one page. So what's a preferred number of bullets that you should put under every single heading, for instance, just to make sure that you're not too, long-winded?
Very good. And nothing worse than 20 bullet points under one internship. It's please, no shade, but for most people, give people what they need. Quality over quantity. I don't want to give you a number because I do want you to be mindful. I tend to think, for me, 4 to 5 really strong, juicy bullet Troy's like, yeah, that's enough. When you start getting into 10 and 20, people are not reading, they're not reading that. So give people the juicy, straight to the point, meaty, verb starting, quantified bullets. I think is going to be really important. And then I think you mentioned a good point. Students, you don't need two-page resumes as students. You don't. It needs to be 1 page. If you're struggling, I'm saying it. If you are struggling to get it to 1 page, you are not being thoughtful and mindful about the organization at which you're applying for the job for. So go back through and determine what needs to stay and what needs to go. What are the experiences you've had that are speaking to the role? Everything else, you may have one resume that's 2 pages, that's like your master long kind of like framework or blueprint, and you can pick and pull things depending on the job role. Okay? Great question. Great question.
Great question. I always say 7 is the number of completion. Let's try to
Yes.
stay right around there.
Listen, that hit. That's it.
Yes, right around there, because you start spacing out. So Trinity, come on camera or not, or just come on, unmute yourself for your question.
Hello, I'll keep this brief. Thank you. I know we mainly focus on the resumes, but I was wondering when it comes to writing a cover letter, if you're not 100% sure what you want to do, how do you write a broad cover letter or a appealing cover letter?
Cover letters are very interesting, and I'll find a resource on that and send it over. There's a lot of orgs for internships that don't require them anymore. If I'm honest, and that's the reason why I didn't include it here, because a lot of, especially for internships, people have said that if a recruiter has 7 seconds, 20 seconds to look over, they're not looking at a cover letter too. Now, if it's required, in a cover letter, you're basically looking to, here's the theme, provide additional color to your resume beyond the resume. So you can start to tell the story. You can start to break down a bullet or 2 that's in your resume and provide color on it in the cover letter. The cover letter is like the script to a few points in your resume. And most importantly, the cover letter is where you articulate to the organization and the team why. Why Troy is a good fit for Goldman Sachs. Why Troy is a good fit for Goldman Sachs Alternative Investment Group. That's where you drill in with your life experiences and interests, and you tell the story that your resume has not told. All right. I hope that's helpful.
Yes. Again, let's give another round of applause for Ms. Chelsea. Thank you so much for
My
joining
pleasure.
us. Our students, I'm sure, are 10 feet taller because of all of the information that you've provided. And again, we're going to be providing this to you all in recording, and also be able to kind of pick out some of those slides so that you can have them to just study over and make sure that you get it right. One last thing before we let you go. Achille, if you could pop up that slide for us, that'd be wonderful. Just another housekeeping measure. Achille, if you could pop up that slide. Thank you so much. All righty, perfect. So last things, and just as reminders to everyone, please keep this in mind as you're going through the last couple of sessions that, sorry about that. We're getting there. Hold on.
Sorry, it's not letting me present from that specific screen. I'm trying to get it on. Can you see it from here, Troy?
I can, yes. It just needs to be a little bit bigger for the team. I mean, for the students so that they can see. It's okay, just click it through. So we can get the students. Thank you, ma'am. All righty. So last minute reminders, just as a reminder, please remember that attendance is mandatory for all of these sessions. There is a 15-minute grace period. So if you arrive to this session after 15 minutes, you are late. If you are having troubles or if you have a prior engagement, we have a lot of students that have prior engagements and things of that nature. If you have that, let us know ahead of time and we'll try to work with you. But if you just come in late you don't come at all, obviously that's going to be an unexcused absence, which could eventually turn into possibly being removed from the program or anything like that. We don't want to take this scholarship and internship opportunity away from you. So please, please, please take that very seriously. Each week's registration email contains the excused absence form. Utilize it, take advantage of that. We are understanding, but we are still very stern when it comes to attendance of these sessions. We're providing a scholarship to you all and an amazing internship. And the most we ask is that you show up to these sessions. So please be sure to fill out and attach any documentation that verifies your absence or your tardiness, and we'll work with you. Now, there are some assignments that each and every one of you have to absolutely submit. You were sent a link that takes you over to Schoology, which is the online community that we use here at UNCF for all of our module work and things of that nature. I'm going to go ahead and put it in the chat for you all. Please log into your Schoology account and make sure that you submit the following assignments. Your resume, we just went through an entire section about that. Please make sure to update it and upload it. It is due Friday, June 24th by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Miss Janice Carroll is in charge of that. And if you have questions, if you need her help, here's her email address. Please reach out to her. Please don't wait till the last minute. Get it in now. You also need to submit your Spark Hire mock interview. Now, those are due Monday, June 27th. Again, this is something that it's non-negotiable. You have to submit this. These Spark Hire interviews help you and get you ready for your actual interviews. The URL is now in the chat. Please copy and paste it. Please copy and paste that. And again, if you need any help or if you have any questions, just reach out to Miss Janice Carroll and she'll be able to help you out. With that being said, we want to say thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for giving us the extra 12 minutes of your time. Thank you again, Miss Chelsea Williams. We are grateful for you. Everyone have a wonderful rest of your day. And if you need anything, please feel free to reach out to the CIE email account. I'm going to go ahead and put that in there in the chat as well. And have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. Good night, everybody.
Have a good one.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Trinity, I see your hand up. Did you have a quick question?
I'm sorry, that was an accident.
No worries. Okay, everyone have a wonderful rest of your night. Be well, be safe. And if you need anything, again, please email us and we'll be happy to help you out.
We have questions from Angela and Sean.
Okay, Angela. Yes.
I was wondering if there was a possibility that you could please put the reminders back up so I could like screenshot that so I don't forget anything that is like required of me.
Yes, sure. I'll go ahead and screen share that.
Give me 1 second.
Kelia. London, did you have a quick question?
Yes, ma'am. I was just asking, for the headshots and stuff, is it still too late to send in a headshot or is it too late to send one in?
No, please send that in. I'm going to put the email again. Please send that to CIE@uncf.org. Send that over. It's not too late. Yes, Sean, what's your question?
Okay, thank you very much. Have a great day.
You too. Be safe.
Hi. So my question was, I know that I had missed last week's session because I want an internship. I did fill out the form. Do I need to fill it out again? Because my timing is a little different because, like I said, I'm in California right now, and usually, I live in Florida, so I'm in a different time zone now.
No, well,
So
Sean, not to cut you off. Sorry, I just don't want you to be telling your business all over
you
the
good.
thing. So go ahead and send an email to us and we'll work with you through there. Okay. I'll put the email in one more time. Send the
Actually,
email.
I can take this one, Troy. Sorry. So Sean, I responded to your email.